the secret meaning, the meaning of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. We read about this in the book of Genesis of the Holy Bible. To find the secret meaning of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you need to first study how certain parts of the tree function. Furthermore, you need to investigate how certain features of the brain and spine relate to the tree. The tree is an important symbol in many spiritual and religious teachings because it represents the connection between the spiritual realm and the material world. And the writer says, besides studying the tree, brain and spine, you have to overcome your fear of the occult so that you have enough courage to tumble down the rabbit hole to explore the world of occult knowledge, to find one of the secret meanings of the tree of life, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And you need to use knowledge and the art of word magic to decipher the parables and riddles in the book of Genesis. Many people like to associate the word occult with evil. This is a big misconception that prevents people from learning important spiritual knowledge. The word occult comes from the Latin word occultus, meaning hidden, concealed, secret. Therefore, occult knowledge means hidden knowledge or secret knowledge. Occult knowledge is like a tool and therefore can be used for good or evil purposes, the writer says. For example, a knife can be used to save or end a man's life. Like a knife, occult knowledge can be used to heal or harm mankind. Today, many religious people like to verbally attack researchers of the occult, but they do not understand is that the Bible, the Quran, and the Tipitaka contains more occult knowledge than over 99% of the books in the world. By the end of this article, you'll know why the key to deciphering the parables and riddles of the Bible is occult knowledge, the writer says. The seed of infinite potential. Throughout the history of man, the tree has always been a symbol of worship. One of the reasons for this is because the tree is a great expression of the one and the many. And as one, the tree starts as a seed with infinite potential. This seed contains the Atman, a word that comes from the Sanskrit word Atma, meaning essence, breath, and soul. In Hinduism, the word Atman means the principle of life, or the individual self, known after enlightenment to be identical with Brahman, or initial capital letter, the word soul, the world soul, from which all individual souls derive, and to which they return as the supreme goal of existence. As the one seed grows, it eventually transforms into a trunk and then sprouts branches and leaves, becoming more increasingly complex by observing and studying how a tree grows. You can see how it beautifully and miraculously expresses the principle of unity and multiplicity. This principle of unity and multiplicity can also be seen during the developments of a fetus. The creation of the fetus starts with the merging of two seeds, the sperm and egg, and this merging process transforms the sperm and egg into a zygote, which is considered one seed or one being. An interesting fact you need to know about the word one is that it is an anagram for the word neo, a word forming element meaning new and recent. Another interesting piece of information is that the word neo is a name of the main character in the movie The Matrix. In the movie, Neo eventually became known as the One. The zygote one is only a seed, but within it contains all the information of the body of man, male and female. As the zygote grows and divides itself, it eventually develops into a blastocyte and then an embryo. This is a stage when all the different parts of the body develop, such as the spine, heart, brain, lungs, and central nervous system. An important structure of the body is the skull. This is the dome or of the temple that houses an organ called the brain, which is located between the temples of the head. This organ has two hemispheres called the left hemisphere and right hemisphere. The secret meaning of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Many scientists and spiritual teachers have said that the left hemisphere is the masculine side of the brain and is responsible for logic, analytic thought, science, and math. As for the right hemisphere, it's the feminine side and is responsible for art, creativity, holistic thought, imagination, and spiritual awareness. Because the left hemisphere is the masculine side, it's considered good. One of the reasons for this is that for thousands of years, the masculine energy has always been associated with positive energy or light. As for the right hemisphere, it is the feminine or negative side and therefore is considered evil, the characteristics given to darkness. The right hemisphere, feminine evil, controls the left hand and the muscles of the left side of the body, and this is why people who write with their left hand are sometimes judged as bad. The thoughts produced by the mind and processed by the brain have the power to motivate man, male and female, to do good or evil things. This concept is metaphorically represented in the book of Genesis as the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Anatomically, this tree represents the left and right hemispheres of the brain. Is it hard for you to see the connection between the tree of knowledge of good and evil and the left and right hemispheres of the brain? To make it easier for you to see the connection, let's explore another important tree in the midst of the garden called the tree of life. And out of the ground made the Lord God to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil, Genesis 2:9. To find the secret meaning of the tree of life, you need to study the arbor vitae, which is an important part of the brain, located near the brain stem. The arbor vitae is defined as a tree-like appearance in a vertical section of the cerebellum due to the arrangement of the white and gray nerve tissues. And to see a picture of it, you can click on the link in the article here. Now, the connection between the arbor vitae of the brain and the tree of life is plainly obvious when you know that the Latin term arbor vitae literally means tree of life. Do you see how the tree of knowledge of good and evil and the tree of life represent certain parts of the brain and are not really trees? The book of Genesis was not written to be read literally. How do I know this? Because I have never seen a serpent that talks in real life. Have you? The fact that a serpent spoke to Eve in the book of Genesis could tell you that this book contains myths. This is why the book of Genesis does not make sense until its myths are deciphered. Dictionary.com defines the word myth using these exact words. A traditional or legendary story, usually concerning some being or hero or event, with or without determinable basis of fact or a natural explanation, especially one that is concerned with deities or demigods and explains some practice, rite, or phenomenon of nature. This definition does a good job of briefly summarizing most of the stories of the Bible. Now, I'm going to tell you what my experience was concerning this. I did call the high priest rabbi of the Athens Israeli community to ask him about the snake of the garden in the paradise, okay, the snake of that seduced and tempted Adam and Eve. And he said that the word for snake or a cunning one is Nahash and Nahash. It depends where you put the accent, Nahash and Nahash. So that's why a lot of translations basically have made the creature into a snake, whereas the original Hebrew or Aramaic meaning was supposed to be the cunning one. Okay, and we do have the reference in the New Testament given to us by the Apostle Paul that says that the evil one was transformed into an angel of light, and Eve was so beguiled by his beauty that she believed everything he said. but he was basically the cunning one. Okay, so I want to put this here. Obviously, the author of this article is not aware of that snake or cunning one translation from the Aramaic. So let's be aware of that. Now, the author goes on to say here, an important principle that you need to know about myths is that they are often written in parables and riddles. The reason for this is that to attain higher spiritual knowledge, you need to learn how to decipher words to find the deeper meaning. For example, the knowledge of God cannot be understood through words alone, because words cannot express the power of knowing. Because of this, the stories of the Bible were written in parables and riddles to motivate people to use their spiritual powers to help them decipher the words into information, assimilate the information into knowledge, and experience into wisdom, allowing them to know what the words mean on a spiritual level. This is why in Matthew 13:34-35, Jesus said, all these things spoke Jesus unto the multitudes in parables, and without a parable spake he not unto them, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophet, saying, I will open my mouth in parables, I will utter things which have been kept secret from the foundation of the world. The secret meaning of the serpent, again, okay, what the rabbi of the Israeli community of Athens, Greece told me is that it's the mistranslation. It's not serpent, it means cunning one. Nahash and Nahash. Now, in certain occult teachings, the serpent is a symbol of life, procreation, wisdom, the author says, transformation, fertility, and healing. The serpent also represents the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. Based on my knowledge and research, the serpent in the book of Genesis represents the ego, the producer of thoughts related to curiosity, rebellion, and disobedience. These characteristics of the ego are not necessarily bad things. For example, children are very curious, rebellious, and disobedient, but do we judge them as bad or evil? The serpent represents the ego mind that curiously wants to explore beyond the Garden of Eden. When you look at the serpent in Adam and Eve from perspective of the mind, the serpent is the ego and Adam is the conscious mind and Eve is the subconscious mind. This concept is related to the Holy Trinity, which is defined as the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit existing as one God. The ego is etymologically defined as the self, that which feels, acts, or thinks. The word ego comes from the Latin word ego, meaning I. It's not the Latin word, it's the ancient Greek word ego, meaning I. In other words, the ego is your individuality. Adam and Eve, the story of the creation of polarity. The name Adam is defined by etymon line using the exact words. Biblical name for the first man, progenitor of the human race, from Hebrew Adam, man, literally the one formed from the ground. Hebrew Adam, Adama means ground. To find the occult or secret hidden meaning of Adam, you need to use the art of homophone to help you find a specific word that sounds similar to Adam. Phonetically, the name Adam sounds nearly identical to the word atom. Well, this to me, I'm sorry, I have to say this is nonsense. But I'm going to read the article for you anyway. The biblical character Adam represents the positive atom, and the biblical character Eve represents the negative atom ion. The book of Genesis uses myths to secretly tell you about the splitting of the atoms and the creation of genes and DNA. Hence the title Genesis, which is genes is, Genesis is. What can I tell you? This is ridiculous. But I'm reading it for you anyway. All right? In Genesis 2:21-22 says, and the Lord caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept, and he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh instead thereof. And the rib which the Lord had taken from man, made he a woman and brought her unto the man. The biblical story of Adam and Eve is nothing more a story about the creation of polarity. Adam is the mythical man who represents the positive atom, divine masculine energy, and Eve is the mythical woman who represents the negative atom, divine feminine energy. Here's an excerpt from my Amazon bestseller book titled word magic, the powers and occult definitions of words that express the story of Adam and Eve further. At the deepest level, the biblical story of Adam and Eve is nothing more than a story of the two creative forces of polarity and why these two forces are constantly fighting and making love with each other, similar to what people do in an intimate relationship. This process of fighting, expanding, and making love, contracting, allows the manifestations of negative and positive experiences. The knowledge and experience gained from these experiences teach the two creative forces of polarity to achieve a state of balance and harmony. And once you understand the occult or hidden meaning of the story of Adam and Eve, you will eventually know that it is a story of two creative forces of polarity and their magical journey to achieve a state of balance and harmony. Hence, the story of Adam and Eve, the sun and the moon, the sperm and the egg, the conscious and subconscious, the light, the good and the darkness, evil, the positive and the negative, the divine masculine, the divine feminine, the Christ and the Antichrist, etc. No, I don't believe in this. You can't equate Christ with the Antichrist. Now, the people who wrote the Bible were geniuses and knew about atoms and DNA over 2,000 years ago. Maybe scientists should start paying attention to the secret messages said in the Bible instead of making an ignorant claim that the Bible is full of lies. The Bible is not really a record of history. It's a mythical book that teaches people important lessons in life and the secrets of universe through the power of myth. Because of this, to access the secret knowledge of the Bible requires occult knowledge and the ability to decipher and assimilate mythical information into knowledge using the art of word magic. This is by Pao Chang, the author of Esoteric Knowledge and Om Thought. It is on Solask. I don't agree with most of the things he writes. The Bible was written by prophets, and these prophets were speaking with the actual triune God. And of course, let's keep in mind what the rabbi tells us, that it's Nahash and Nahash. The translation is totally wrong. It's not snake or serpent, it's the cunning one. The cunning one. And as we know from St. Paul the Apostle, who tells us in the New Testament, and St. Paul, let's remember, was a student of the high priest Gamaliel, who after Jesus Christ's resurrection did believe that Christ was the Messiah, the Son of God. St. Paul told us that he transformed himself into an angel of light. That's how he tempted and seduced and enticed Eve. Let's keep that in mind. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.